Hello, welcome. My name is Claribel. I am a health and wellness counselor, and I also have Crohn's disease with IBS. If you've clicked on this video, you yourself are struggling with Crohn's or IBS or some kind of inflammatory disease. Perhaps maybe you've clicked on this video because you have a loved one or someone that you know that has Crohn's, IBS, or another inflammatory disease. I welcome you all, and I thank you in advance. I've been living with Crohn's disease for 21 years to be exact. I was diagnosed when I was 25. Crohn's has definitely taught me a lot about myself, my endurance, what I'm able to handle, and the changes that I can make, and also the healing that you really can have, that your body does naturally do. So in the next few minutes, I want to share with you 10 things that I have learned through my personal journey with Crohn's disease. I will preface this by saying I am not a medical professional. We are all individuals. Our paths are very different. Our diseases are very different. And so therefore, some things may resonate with you, others may not. And perhaps you can not struggle as much as I have, because I can tell you I've struggled a lot in 20 years. And I will share my story in a different video because it is quite a story. So as I share these thoughts with you, I will ask you to bear with me as I look down into my notes. So let's begin. So the first thing I want to say that I have definitely learned is to stop and know your triggers. Maybe it's stress as well. That can bring on a flare or a flare-up. I currently am going through a flare-up. It's one of these beautiful things with the invisible disease. You would never know it if you pass me on the street or looking at me on this video. You perhaps don't think that I can probably be in pain, but I am, and I am going through a flare-up. Hopefully it's a small one. I was able to catch them to hopefully stop this flare-up in its track and hopefully not let it last and cause more damage than it can possibly. So, like I said, know your triggers, and it's something that's going to take time. You'll have to really, really play the detective with yourself and pay attention. For me, my main trigger, which is probably a lot of us, is stress. Anytime I put too much on my plate, I'm too stressed out, down the line, I can guarantee I am going to go through a flare-up. So know your triggers, identify them, write them down, put them in your notebook, put them in your phone, whatever works for you. Just know your triggers, keep them always at eye level so that you can be aware of them. Number 2, this is a big one. It's a big one, and it's also very difficult. None of these are easy by any means, but remove or work around any additional stressors. So we talked about triggers, and now we talk about those stressors that can bring on certain triggers. For me, is being around negative people. I am a happy-go-lucky person naturally. I've always been that way. I've always looked at the brighter side. I've always looked at things or the glass half full. Being around negativity really, really gets to me, really brings me down. I absorb other people's energy, and it took me a really long time to understand that being around certain types of environments or negativity or types of people in general can trigger me to have a flare-up. Knowing who we are around is basically what I'm trying to say. If somebody brings you down, try to limit yourself around that person or that environment. So know your triggers, know your stressors. Number 3, this is one that took me quite a while to really focus on, but take the time for mental health, for your mental health, for your mental clarity. Um, being healthy, health does not only mean that you have to eat healthy, does not only mean that you have to exercise. It also includes taking the time for yourself, for your mind to be quiet, to be still. Um, so I have some things like take a walk, take a 5-minute walk. I work full time. So although I work from home, and I've worked from home for well over a decade, but you have to take some time. So I try my best. I put alarms on my phone, and I take 2 5-minute walks, whether it be outside in front of my house, or whether I can walk down the block, or whether I take it outside, or whether I take those 5 minutes and I do a quick yoga stretch or 5 jumping jacks. I have a little trampoline that I keep in my office. I do some jumping jacks sometimes, or I jump on the trampoline for a couple of minutes. So anything that you can find to break away from the monotony is key for well-being. But again, key thing is just bringing focus back to breathing, and just silence would be good. Like I said, whether it's walking or just perhaps maybe sitting outside for 5 minutes in silence. All right, so number 4 goes hand in hand with number 3. Number 4 is take time for light and moderate exercise. I'm not a health professional, again, I mentioned, and I'm not a fitness instructor. I'm not a personal trainer. When you have an inflammatory disease, there are certain limitations. You need to speak with your doctor in regards to that. I've learned along the way for myself that moderate to light exercise is the best for me. And boy, if I could get paid to work out, I would. I love working out. I could work out for hours, but I can't, because the type of workout that I do enjoy most are very hard on my body, and if I do too much of them, can cause additional inflammation and flare-ups. So that's why it's key. And again, it may be different for everyone, and of course it is different for everyone, but the key is it's still good to include light and moderate exercise at least 5 times a week, whether that's a walk, a 2-mile walk, or a hike if you're in a place where you can hike. I'm in Florida, so no hiking for me, but I can take long walks on the beach. So just light, maybe jumping rope is your thing, or perhaps it's biking or swimming. Something that you can do for an extended amount of time that's not going to max out your heart rate. Definitely is necessary. If you can do it 5 times a week, that's great. If you can do it once, fantastic. But that will help you align with your inner peace as well, I find. Number 5. So this is another hard lesson that I have learned in the past decade, especially more so with the influence of social media. Do not follow trends. And what I mean by that is we see, or again, speaking for myself, seeing Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and seeing the latest and greatest fitness craves hit all different types of videos with new eating habits. Now there's keto, now there's carnivore, there's vegetarian raw, there's a plethora of trends out there. So these are not all one size fits all, whether it be a fitness trend or a diet trend. For myself, I have had 10 surgeries. I have had about 6 to 7 intestinal resections. So I don't have much to play with, and therefore I can't have fiber. I follow quite a few YouTubers that are raw vegetarian, and I love watching their channel. I love watching their content. I enjoy it, but I will never be able to eat raw vegetables. I will never be able to do that. I just can't. Um, I've tried the keto, and while it didn't impact me too heavily, it's not something that I can do forever. Not again with my Crohn's and the level of disease that I have had and the number of surgeries that I have had, which has lessened my intestinal tract. So there's something to be said about watching influencers and thinking, oh, maybe this will be the thing that'll help. Now, again, I'm not saying don't try. We certainly need to try to know what will and will not work. But keep in mind that every time something new comes out, it just don't be so harsh um, on your digestive system to constantly change things around. Like I said, ease into things and certainly try, because we do need to try different things to see what fits, different foods, different workouts. And again, speaking with your doctor is key. But just because it works for somebody that you see, that you follow, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So I've come to terms with all of these things, that I am managing my disease the best way I can by keeping track of what works for me. So, number 6, eat more natural foods that you can tolerate. This is something I went through a period in the first few years that I was diagnosed with Crohn's, that there wasn't, when I was diagnosed, Crohn's wasn't very known, or at least in my area in Florida where I lived at the time, it wasn't as of known of a disease as it is today. I mean, for every other person I meet today, they may know someone or know someone who knows someone who has Crohn's. But that wasn't the case 20 years ago. So 20 years ago, there wasn't a dietitian who could tell me what to eat. What they told me was avoid dairy, avoid milk, avoid so many things. In any case, the things that they were telling me that I could eat were like white bread, crackers, things to kind of settle your stomach, right? Or the flare-ups. Well, a lot of that was processed, or is processed food. And so it throughout the years, I've learned that there's still a lot that I can't eat, clearly. Like we've mentioned before, I can't eat raw vegetables and things like that. But sticking to the more natural foods, I am Latin. I grew up with rice, beans, plátanos, tostones. So I've had to make adjustments to certain foods. I could still have rice, and I can have plantains. And what I do is I'll boil plantain. It's a high carb fruit, or is it a vegetable? I think it's a fruit. And I can have potatoes. I can have sweet potatoes. I can have yuca, which is another, I think it's also called yucatan. A lot of things that I grew up eating, I could still enjoy them, just cooked differently. I either bake or boil them or broil them. So again, sticking to the more natural foods is best, and trying to avoid the processed foods, like the breads and the pastas, and again, everything in moderation. Doesn't mean that I won't have pasta every once in a while. that's the key with everything and with life. I'm sure you've heard this before, but it's everything, I believe, is with moderation. Doesn't mean that I don't enjoy um, you know, a piece of toast or a bagel or what have you every once in a while, but just trying to stick to more whole foods is always the best for your gut. So next is, we're going down to 7. 7 goes with so many of these, but it just came to mind. It is slow down. Slow down. I am one person. I've always been this person. I've joked around with my friends. I am not one to take to the movies. I can't sit still. I have had a hard time sitting still. And that has been a hard lesson to learn, to slow down and actually enjoy to sit still. I have a 9-year-old, and I remember when he got a Nintendo a few years ago, he would constantly want me to play, and I'm like, no, I don't have time. I've got this, you know. And I have definitely learned, after all the surgeries that I have gone through, all the close calls of thinking, am I going to make this one? To slow down. And yeah, so we have a little routine. My son, you know, once or twice a week, I'll lay in bed with him and we'll play Nintendo. We'll play a game of his choice. I unplug, and or at least I try to. And I just enjoy to slow down. And if I didn't do the dishes in the sink, they'll be there tomorrow. If I didn't put that load of laundry that's in the wash in the dryer, I'll rewash it tomorrow. It's not the end of the world. What is not taking the time to be there with him when he wanted, and then tomorrow comes or may not. So I have had too many close calls, and having 10 surgeries and rolling into a surgery room so many times, and knowing that I've left my son at home and the possibility of me not seeing him, really has taught a hard lesson. And so it's funny how I just realized right now that I have 10 things and my son is going to be 10. For me, what's resonated the most has been after having him. I think a lot has been brought to light and has allowed me to learn these harder lessons that I've kept repeating in the past. And then hopefully I won't continue to in the future. So slow down. 8 goes in line with number 7. Lessen your load. Like I said, I work from home. I work full time for corporate America. And I, at one point, would be working 50, 55 hours a week. And because I worked from home, it was almost justifiable, because I would go run and get my son and then come back and log in. I would have something already made for him, and he would be watching TV, and it was just constant. And then after that, I would have to do, you know, X, Y, and Z. And I felt this pressure constantly. And that, again, goes back to number 1, the stressors, the triggers. So I now know that I need to lessen my load. Some days I get to do 5 things on my task. Some days I don't. I have to be flexible with myself, because I have a full-time job that is not that flexible. It is not a cookie cutter 9-to-5 job. I work for an environment that if I have to work late for a client, then, you know, I have to make do. Now, there is some flexibility, because then the next morning I don't have to log in. So again, I've lightened my load. 9. So this goes with finding your joy. So be around your friends, your loved ones. Make time. Again, I mentioned how I make time for my son to spend time with him with things that he wants to do a few times a week or a few times a day if I can. But also, as an introvert, one of the hardest lessons I learned was I got real comfortable with being alone. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't, me personally, don't have an issue with being alone. I enjoy it. I find peace in it. I actually find a lot of disruption when I'm around a lot of noise and chitter chatter and clutter. But I find myself that when I pull myself away and I go make plans with friends at an event or at a restaurant or even at the movies, I might find myself hesitant. But once I do it, there's a sense of enjoyment, a sense of relief, a sense of joy that comes with being around other people. You don't think about your pain as much. You don't think about your problems. You don't think about those million things as much. Again, we all have problems. They will always be there. But we can set those aside and spend some joyful times with loved ones, family, friends, co-workers, anything. But finding time for little joys, finding time to do that with others and share that with others will also help. Number 10 is one of the things that I didn't have a hard time with this one. This was one of the things that came very natural to me personally for a very long time. But I do find a lot of friends and people that I've come around with that it doesn't come natural. But do find someone to confide in. That's what I think is kind of pulls this all together. I personally have never had a problem with sharing, or finding someone to speak with. But it is important sometimes to get that neutrality, someone that doesn't know you, judge-free zone, what have you. There's a level of confidence sometimes that goes along with speaking to someone who just doesn't know you, instead of, not to say that your friends will judge you, but there's always that fear. And but I hope that has helped you. We all have different journeys. We all have different symptoms. We all have different issues. So again, take everything with a grain of salt. Hopefully some of these have resonated with you. And if you stuck around this long, I would love to hear from you. What do you do? What are some things that you do that I did not mention that kind of helps you with your inflammatory disease? I would love to hear it, and I can't wait to see you again. Thank you so much. Have a great one, and stay healthy. Bye.